My name is ZOMINA, and this is my story. We met in September of 2019 on a dating app. I never really meant to find anyone. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but we met and we connected. And we eventually got into a relationship. By that October, we were coming from my church, and he had asked me if I wanted to go over his house for a family dinner. I said yes. So we headed towards his family's house. While on the way there, he got a call from his mom asking where he was, and he told her that we were coming to the house. She told us that she didn't want us at their home alone because her and his dad were out. So we pulled into the parking lot of a school. And it was the weekend, so nobody was there. We pulled into the parking lot, and while there, I changed my mind about going over his house for a family dinner. He didn't like that. He got upset, saying I should have told him before we got to Bartlett. He started yelling. He started beating on the steering wheel. And he eventually started putting his hands on me. And I got out the car to create some distance between us. And he followed me. He was just yelling, telling me to get back in the car, pulling me, like pulling my hair. And I remember seeing a man, he was like across the field, and he was waving his arms. I think he was trying to wave me down, and I believe he's the one who called the police. When the police got there, they saw the bruises on my neck. They asked me what was going on. I really didn't say much. He told the officers everything. So they took him into custody, and the last thing I heard was from his attorney that we couldn't see each other for a year. I didn't press charges because I felt like it was my fault, that I shouldn't have changed my mind. So, yeah, but I told him that I would wait for him for a year. We got back together in December of 2020. I looked him up on Facebook. Turns out he was in a relationship with another girl, and I was upset because I had wasted all that time waiting for him. I expressed to him how I felt. He told me that he thought that I wouldn't wait for him. He ended up breaking things off with the girl, and we got back together. When we got back together, there were still arguments, but they weren't as bad as what he had done to me back then, so I really paid no mind to them. In February of 2021, I found out I was pregnant. When we found out, the first thing he wanted me to do was have an abortion because he was afraid of what his parents would say. He said that he was too young to be a dad, and I told him that I didn't want to do that because I didn't believe in abortions. Eventually, he told his parents. They basically wanted the same thing. His mom even took it upon herself to schedule me an appointment to Planned Parenthood, where they paid for the consultation. When I got there, The doctor told me that I was 18 weeks and that I was too far along to get the procedure done. I told him and his parents. They weren't happy about it, so they offered to take me to other places to get it done, saying that they would travel with me. I told them that I didn't want to do it. My family was supportive in me keeping my child, so that's what I did. Towards the end of September 2021, I was around 8 months pregnant. I had got into an altercation with my brother. He had come home drunk, and once he came in, he was bullying on my little cousin, just calling him names, hitting him. So I told my cousin to come in my room. And at the time I was living with my grandmother. I told my cousin to come in my room. I closed the door behind him and locked it so that my brother couldn't get in. My brother came. He started beating on the door, telling me that my little cousin wasn't my child, and he eventually burst through it, trying to get to him. My cousin ran behind me screaming, and I was trying to protect him. And in the midst of him trying to get to my cousin, he ended up punching me in my stomach. I called the police. They took me to the hospital. He never got arrested for it, because before they arrived, he had walked away. My grandmother, she got upset with me because I told her that I was going to continue to press charges against my brother. She didn't like the fact that I would press charges against family. So she kicked me out, and I went to go live with my aunt. My aunt, she made it seem like her house would be a safe haven for me, when in reality it wasn't. She just wanted to convince me to drop the charges against my brother. So I left there, and I went to go live with my abuser and his family. I felt like I had nowhere else to go. I initially was about to enter like a homeless shelter. And honestly, I would have preferred that other than living with him and his parents, but they convinced me, saying that if I were to move in with them, they would, buy everything I needed, everything my son needed, food, clothes, shelter, and I wouldn't have to pay anything. So that kind of won me over. After I moved in with them, it was kind of weird, because honestly, I really wasn't that close with his parents, and it was just an all-around new environment for me. Their help didn't feel genuine. I felt as if they had only wanted me there because I was pregnant with their son's child, and that they just wanted their grandchild there. Things between us didn't really get that better. we would still argue. We would get into physical altercations. His parents would hear us. They wouldn't do anything. I would tell his mom. She would just tell me that's the way he is. They didn't really want me leaving with my son. Every time I would try to leave, they would take the car seats, lock them in the back of their vehicles. They would tell me that if I were to Uber with a car seat, they would call the police on me and report it as stolen property. They would tell me they didn't really like the part of town that I grew up in because I just wanted him to meet his grandmother, great-grandmother, just to know his, his mom's side of the family. They would basically just say it was unsafe. He would tell me he doesn't want his child to be in the hood. Yeah, like he would try to convince me that I'm different. Like sometimes we'd be in traffic and he'd see like a black person would cut him off, and then he would say the hard R word, and I would get upset at him at that, and he would tell me that I shouldn't be upset because I'm not. There's a difference between the N word and a normal black person, and he would tell me that I'm a normal black person. Like his parents weren't too pleased about him dating a black girl. He told me that in the beginning his mom cried, and I actually confronted her about that, and I asked her, I said, why did you cry when you found out that your son was dating a black girl? And she told me, she brushed it off like, oh, there were other things going on at the moment, but still, your son dating a black girl made it worse. Like that's the question I wanted answered. But yeah, she told me that I wasn't the ideal girl she pictured her son would be with. They would treat me nice sometimes, but when their son and I would get into arguments, they would constantly side with him, even if he was in the wrong. If he put his hands on me, if he was yelling at me, they wouldn't interfere. Only when I retaliated against him would they come upstairs, take their son downstairs and tell him, get away from this crazy girl, Well, sometimes I would, like after an argument, I would lock the doors so he wouldn't get in. Well, the bedroom door. I would lock the bedroom door. Honestly, while I was living with them, there really was no escape, because they would tell me that I could leave, but I had to leave my son there with them. So I just had to bear through it until I could actually, get my son out with me. There were times where his mom would lock me out the house, and she wouldn't unlock the door until like her husband or her son came home. Sometimes they would shield my son away from me and tell me not to, basically telling me that I couldn't take him with me if I wanted to go see my grandmother or any member of my family. If I would lock the door, him or his dad would come upstairs and they would take the door off the hinges and put it in the attic, and I just wouldn't have any privacy or no door on the bedroom for like a couple days. So I'd have to go in the bathroom to get some type of privacy. The first 2 times that I tried to leave, his mom called the police. It wasn't a normal 911 number. Like, she does work for the city of Bartlett, and she has a lot, she's always bragging about her connections with the police department, the fire department. So she called the police, and they came out. I told them my story. I told them how they were being abusive, how I was really trying to leave, but they would just say things like, they would ask me, where are you trying to go? Do you really think that, I would tell them my grandmother's house, and they would ask me, do I really think that my grandmother's house is a better place than where I was living with them? Nothing really came of it. They would just usher me back into the household, and that would be it. They would tell me that his dad told me that if I were to ever leave, he would take it to the courts, and he would tell me that if I thought that I had enough money to battle him in court, then I had another thing coming. Well, I had been talking to another, a domestic violence advocate, and she was kind of helping me throughout the whole situation, like giving me advice. My abuser and his family, they went behind my back and they filed a fiat, like a court order, stating that if I were to take my son from their household, I would be in contempt of court. They filed this on June the 17th, 2021, and they weren't planning on telling me, but after I called the police and they were actually saying that they would help me get out, they threw the document in my face. On June 23rd, which was the day I left, my abuser and his mom, they came upstairs and they were picking at me. I was in the bathroom and I was cutting the lace off my wig. I didn't really want to hear what he had to say, so I walked out the bathroom. We walked out at the same time, and while we were walking out, he told his mom that I was trying to stab him with the knife that I was using to cut the lace. He told his mom that I was trying to stab him. So his mom just freaked out, and she was like, she called for her husband. She told him to call the police, and he yelled back upstairs. He was like, "What's the number?" And I was like, yeah, I was like, "What's the number?" That didn't really sit right with me. So I took out my phone and I actually dialed 911. We both walked out, and I was walking towards the bed and he was walking towards his mom. So, and the knife was literally down. I just had my wig and my knife in my hand. He just wanted to cause a scene, basically. Yeah, I did not try to stab him at all. And his mom saw that I didn't, but yet and still, she called for her husband to call the police. I called the police, and once I called the police and they showed, it felt like it was the actual police and not some police officers that they knew. They actually heard me out. And once they showed the police the document, the fiat that they had, even the police didn't believe it. And they told them to pack a diaper bag. After I entered the YWCA, a couple days later, I found a tracking device in my son's diaper bag. I told the staff at the YWCA, and we filed a police report on it. Because of the court order that they had filed, and because I left their residence, we had a court date scheduled for that weekend, for that Friday. I was assigned an attorney. They had their attorney. The judge, she didn't really hear the full story of what happened. She just saw the court order and told me that I had to return my son to them by 1 o'clock that day. The document basically said that I was homeless. It stated that I was mentally unstable. It wasn't true at all. The judge, she didn't really look at everything that was in the document that they filed. So they were able to get away with telling lies, and they were able to take my son away from me for 3 months. I was able to get an attorney and other support, and they helped me to get custody of my son back. I was able to get an apartment and get a job at FedEx. And they're still supporting me now. I was able to get help from my attorney, from my advocates, and others who saw that what happened in the juvenile court system was wrong, and who wanted to help me and support me. Right now, I'm still working. I have my own place, and I took ACEs training, adverse childhood experiences. I worked with one of my advocates on the Overcoming Abuse God's Way program. I was able to get CPR certified. Through the YWCA, I was able to meet people, just get in touch with people who could help me on this journey that I'm going through. Now I just hope that everything can just go back to normal. I'm hoping that my abuser and his family has a change of heart. I'm hoping that we can properly co-parent together, and that hopefully in the future we could get along enough to where we could actually go out and do things together with our son. It's gonna take a while, because we both have a lot of growing to do. And I just hope that my story helps a lot of other people see that that they're not the only ones going through this, that there are other people that go through it, and that you can get through it. You can get through it. I felt as if the judge and the attorneys, the multiple attorneys that my abuser had, I felt that they didn't really care about doing the right thing, that they were more so concerned about money, that they would actually take just take their client's money and do whatever, no matter if it's wrong or right.